Hey guys, Kakarot197 again, this time with a tour of my Hangout room. And today's video was sponsored by Snupps, the social media site where you can share and of course show off your collection on virtual shelves. There's also an app on iOS and Android. Starting off, of course, with the Gundam shelves, and on top of them we have the living proof that this room is a continuous work in progress. We've got some Phantom Pain units, some other Gundam Seeds, some Gundam Seed Destinies, some old 160 scales, which are probably going to be residing there for keeps. As for the Gundam Seed stuff, usually I put them on the top shelf, but as you can see, it's getting quite full down there. Now, Gundam Seed, I'm not going to defend the series itself. It's got its good points and it's got its bad points. As for the mech design in general, I really love the mech design of Gundam Seed, especially the grunt units, the daggers, the Jins. If only we get more of those. But hey, they're making the high-grade Leo, so maybe we'll see some more grunt love from this series as well. Talking about series I'm not going to defend, Victory Gundam. Tomino downright hates the series. As for me, I just find it not particularly memorable, except for the death scenes. But as gruesome as Victory Gundam was, as awesome are their model kits. The old ones, they're cheap, but they come with a lot of stuff, and they're just really nice little model kits. Talking about awesome model kits, we have the ones from F90, F91. I was super happy to get these. They can be a bit tricky to get. I see a lot of people saying that these are like really rare kits. The thing is, they're not particularly rare as much as they're not restocked often. I guess that's kind of the same thing depending on how you look at it. Down there, this started off as a Thunderbolt shelf. Then I added some Origin, then I added some Build Fighters, and then I also needed a place to put my latest Revive kits. I'm kind of running out of place to put these things. And on the bottom shelf of the right case, we have some more random stuff. Got some old ones in the back left. We've got some Iron-Blooded Orphans, some G Gundams, some Wing, some Turn A, and hey, see, I don't hate Gundam 00. And, talking about hating, the G Savior. Really nice. A nice model kit from a really bad movie. Back to the top. Now on the left side, we've got what I'm now going to call my Federation shelf. We've got most of the leads at the bottom there. Oh yeah, the Mark II is missing for a reason. And of course, the one in the middle, the mascot for the Federation. One shelf down, we've got some more Massacrates, some REs in the back. I really love the RE line. I've got all of them so far. Not all of them are displayed here because I haven't built all of them, but I do fully intend to keep supporting the line. On the left, we've got some Robotech and some Macross stuff. I do have to call it Robotech because especially the ones in the front there, they are Robotech branded. I'm so sorry. I started off with Robotech, I know. One shelf down, we've got Gundam X. Nice model kits for the time from an amazing series that rekindled my love for Gundam. There are some gaps in the back, but that's because I haven't built all of the 100 scales. I do have all of them, just haven't had the time to build them. Another shelf down, we've got my leftover Gundam Seed stuff, some Elgheim stuff, some random tanks, some more Robotech branded stuff because way back when I was really into Robotech, and discovered that there was also something called Macross. Some Seed no grades, and down we've got a shelf of really random crap which is probably going to disappear really soon in order to make place for some better stuff. I've now reached the dreaded point where I'm gonna have to start putting things away in boxes, which is why it's great timing that Snupps contacted me now of all times. With Snupps, it's super easy to make virtual shelves and add items to them. With just a few taps, you can add a bunch of details, and fortunately, the more personal things are set to private. One improvement that can be made, however, is the currency input. I've bought things in yen, US dollars, Hong Kong dollars, euro, pound sterling, and so on. But Snupps seems to lock you into the first currency that you choose. Despite that, I'm having a blast creating all kinds of shelves, and I'll be regularly adding new things. One idea I also had was to create a shelf of my backlog and my quote-unquote ready to review kits. So if you want to have some input on my next build and or review, be sure to check those out. And now that you have your stuff in your virtual shelves, it's time for the main event, showing them off. And for that, I have created the Kakarot 197 group, where we can all show off our cool Gundam and other anime and manga related stuff. Of course, if you're into other things, there are many more groups on Snupps that you can join as well, so be sure to look around. And finally, one interesting benefit of Snupps is that having your collection, or at least the most valuable things, cataloged can be seriously handy for insurance purposes. For example, if a fire were to break out, or the nuclear reactor of one of my Gundams were to go critical, my collection unfortunately does not share the plot armor of Kira Jesus Yamato, so it would end up dead. And with Snupps, I would at least have some kind of proof that I could show my insurance company. Anyways, back to the rest of the room tour. To the right of the Gunpla, we've got my trusty AC unit, some boxes, video games, my really awesome Yakushiki PlayStation 2. I really love Sega consoles, as you can probably tell, and a dual disc just because. Down that, we've got my manga, we've got the big hitters, Evangelion, Bleach, Rurouni Kenshin, Fullmetal Alchemist, Fairy Tail, which I should start reading again, Desert Punk, which I'm reading right now, which is a really awesome manga. Down there we've got my Gundam manga in a bunch of different languages, mainly French and Japanese. To the right we've got Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is number 2 is the very first manga I ever got. That's the one that started it all. One of the mangas is the English version. Which one? And that's the reason I'm not a huge fan of the English releases, just in terms of their aesthetics. They stick out like a sore thumb. It's like the French, the Dutch, and well, the French and the Dutch mangas are pretty similar to the Japanese manga, and then the English ones are like completely different. Also, talking about Dutch manga, at some point a few years back, the entire Dutch manga industry just collapsed in on itself. Like Shaman King, which was the worst one, I believe. Shaman King has like 30 or 32 volumes, and they got until like 28, or maybe it was like 26 of 28 that they made, but they like stopped it at the last moment. Also, a great moment where I like started reading Evangelion in French, then I decided, you know what, I'll try to support the local manga industry. And then they ditched it. So it's like Evangelion, I began reading in French, switched to Dutch, and now I'm reading it in French again. With some more. So back to the other manga that I have, some Bamboo Blades, some more random ones, some great bookenders. My very first game console, my Game Boy, makes for great filler here. Telesophonia, absolutely fantastic. A few other mangas that I'm currently trying to get more of. My limited run collection. Some more random stuff up there. Love Hina, which I have like 3 times complete by now. I have it complete in French, I have it complete in Japanese once, and I have it complete in Japanese twice in the form of the Irohina version. I quite like Kanakamatsu stuff. And Volume 2 is currently on its way. And this is basically just my random shelf. Like random manga I was able to score at conventions for like €2 each. Patlabor I'm still trying to find more of. Some Across 7, those are really some of the highlights. Berserk is a really awesome one that I was able to find for cheap. And these are the Japanese manga I was able to pick up while I was in Japan itself. Down here, these are probably like a really weird format. These were some of the earliest mangas I was able to get here in Belgium, the Dragon Ball mangas, and these are like just 1 chapter each, and €3, $3. And damn, these were horribly translated. It's like, I want to say like a bad fan sub level. Like some things just didn't make sense. For example, Goku he's called Son Goku. Like not Goku-san, not Son Goku, but Son Goku. And just all kinds of really weird translations that just don't make any sense. And Pokemon Stadium, just because it makes for a nice ending. Then here we have what I'm calling my Ken Akamatsu Tower, with Lloyd on top of it as well. And video games. I'm not going to go into detail on all of them because I'd be here all day. A few highlights. I really dig the PlayStation 3. And it's just a very good time to collect PlayStation 3 right now. I haven't had a lot of time to play all of the games because the thing is, I really got into collecting PS3 games when I started university, which is not the best time to be playing games, unfortunately. So I have collected a lot of them, and I still have to play a lot of them. Next to that, PS1, PS2, as much as I really love to play these games, man, do they look boring as a collection. Like, I know that American PlayStation 2 games have a lot better spines with like art of the video game itself on it, but just look at ours, they're just white. And they also turn yellow pretty easily, so if you're unlucky and you buy them from a smoker, they're like yellow, which makes it even better, like really great. On top you've got some video game stuff, and yes, that's exactly what you think it is. All the way back in the 80s, Bandai was already making Mecha Mizume stuff, so Super Fumina wasn't first. And what proper games room does not have two televisions? Now for the old television, on top of that we have the Sega Genesis for the American viewers. However, this is the Sega Mega Drive. And we have Alicia Dragoon and Virtua Racing, two really awesome games for the Sega Mega Drive. Especially Alicia Dragoon, that was actually the game I bought this system for. And the Mega CD, it's an interesting oddity. Especially nice because you can just burn CDs for it and play them. Next to that, we have the Dreamcast. I know a lot of people absolutely love the Dreamcast. Unfortunately, I'm a bit on the fence, mainly because of the controller. I have big hands, and this controller is really cramped for my hands. And yes, I am one of the few people, or probably the only person, that actually likes the old Xbox controller, like the big giant thing. We have the Super Nintendo, which is probably my favorite Nintendo console. We have the NES, which is a really good console, except that the damn thing tries to destroy itself. Because of the way you have to put the cartridges in, it literally destroys the console. And the old VCR. I got the silver PlayStation to complement my golden Hyakushiki PlayStation 2. The Hyakushiki figurine is not included, but it looks really nice on it. Now, unfortunately, there are a few retro consoles hooked up to my modern television. No, I don't just have two Nintendo 64s that are exactly the same right next to each other. One is our European Nintendo 64 and the other one is a Japanese Nintendo 64. Nintendo 64, kind of boring to collect for when you only have a European one or an American one. Having a Japanese Nintendo 64 definitely makes the collecting a lot more interesting. There's the modern PlayStation 3, the old PlayStation 2, which doesn't really serve that much of a purpose anymore because I've also got the backwards compatible PlayStation 3 right there. And really that thing's only purpose is to play PlayStation 2 games. That thing is just there because it was my very first home console. I didn't have a console for a long time. Yeah, my parents probably wouldn't let me get one because of the epilepsy I had back in the day. Great. Down there, that is not another VCR player, that is actually a Philips CDI, and that is a giant piece of tech. Just compare it to the Wii that's down there, or like the old Xbox or the Xbox 360. That is a giant machine for playing CDs. A pretty interesting machine. And just in case you're like, what is a CDI? Think of the bad Zelda games. That is the machine these things were played on. Unfortunately, I do not have those games. Next to that, my 360. I absolutely love the Xbox 360. And the controller is probably one of the best controllers ever. Next to that, the Crystal Xbox. It's an interesting thing. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it with the Crystal controllers included. Also, that pink paperclip is not there just for show. Unfortunately, the drive is kind of busted, the CD tray is kind of busted, so sometimes I do have to use the emergency eject thing, which is reached with this little piece. Now, you might have been wondering, why the hell is there a bike here? Well, let's just say that working out is a little bit more fun while you're watching an anime or playing a video game. So that is why the thing is on a trainer, so you can cycle while you remain static. So no, I'm not driving around my room on this thing. Then we've got my wall of consoles: NES, SNES, Nintendo 64, Sega Mega Drive. That's the old no, not the old one. That is the newer Mega Drive, which is actually less good than the first Mega Drive. Then my core graphics, really interesting system. My overstock of PSP games, my Xbox 360 games. Like I said, I don't have nearly as much Xbox 360 games as I have PS3 games, but I do love my Xbox. I have some great memories playing some awesome games. Catherine, which I do believe is also on the 360, on the PlayStation 3. But man, I'm telling you, Halo for the Xbox, a great thing. My Xbox games, for some reason it's really hard to find Xbox games where I live, but they're really cheap when you find them. GameCube, I also don't have a lot of those, not for lack of trying, and it's getting quite hard to find GameCube games on the cheap. The same thing pretty much goes for the SNES and Nintendo 64. The sad thing for the Nintendo 64, at least the European one, I've collected pretty much everything I'd want to collect for that thing, which boils down to like the Zelda games, Super Mario, Banjo-Kazooie, the Pokemon games, and so what else do we have here? Like the Rayman. So Nintendo 64, unfortunately not that interesting to collect for unless you go for the Japanese version. Like Custom Robo is an amazing Nintendo 64 game if you have a Japanese Nintendo 64. Super Nintendo is just really hard to find these things for a decent price out in the wild on a flea market or something like that. You can find them easily at conventions, but man, are those things hard. Are they? Well, they're expensive at conventions and they're hard to find in the wild. Some NES games, some box Super Nintendo, well, one box Super Nintendo games, some more Nintendo 64 games. For Super Nintendo, this is probably one of my favorite games, Super Smash TV, sorry. Really fun game to play if you got a friend over, or just play it on yourself. It's kind of like a twin stick shooter, but with the Super Nintendo gamepad. My collection of Mega Drive and Master System games. I really dig the Sega systems, which is a good thing because they're really easy to find here. The disparity between the Mega Drive games, the Master System games, and my Super Nintendo games isn't because I like the Mega Drive, well, it's because I like Sega that much more. It's just because they're that much easier to find here. Fortunately, there are a lot of awesome games on both the Master System and the Mega Drive. For the Master Systems, games like Ease are just amazing games. Fantasy Zone Maze, fun one as well. Then we've got the Mega Drive games like Ranger X. That's a really awesome game my dad once found for me. And, well, we've also got like Michael Jackson, which is maybe not the best game, but it is an interesting one to play. Some Dreamcast games, same story, really hard to find. And Nintendo games, I do have a lot more luck finding those. Some old VHSs, some old computer games, Atari stuff, and for some reason my two Ataris are just kind of hanging around here. And Video Pack. You know, I said that PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 looked really boring on the shelf. Video Pack is even worse. And finally, here is my coffee table. Just because. There's a world map of Grand Kingdom at the bottom of it, some controllers, and my Video Pack. The reason this thing is here is because it's kind of a hybrid between a console and a computer. You can use this as like an old computer if you have the proper game for it. But I'm telling you, man, this keyboard is horrendous. Fortunately, almost none of the games use it for actual gameplay, and most of the time you only use it for like game selection. If you ever buy yourself a Video Pack and you got a friend over, get Battlefield. That's a really good version on the old Video Pack. Something I also got a liking for is like old-esque books that you get with video games. Made in China. It started with the Reach
Diary from Dr. Halsey, which is a really awesome inclusion with a limited edition. And now I kind of want more of those. And well, that has been my room tour of my man cave, and see you all next time.